This is another thing about Utah. I don't know, maybe they do this other places. They do creative date asking. So like you have to do this very elaborate thing to ask someone on a date, especially to like a formal dance or something. So for example, I remember one of the times I went to homecoming, this kid wrote a song for me. He played the piano because of course, Mormon. So like everyone is like an accomplished pianist. And so he wrote this song for me and like performed this concert and like asked me to the homecoming dance. In order to answer the kid, I was like, okay, yes. And he's like, no. This is unacceptable. You have to answer me in the creative way.
Yeah.
So I covered his entire dorm window with cheese. And I wrote in easy cheese, this is cheesy, but yes.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by Audio Desires, an erotic audio platform dedicated to giving you the best oral sex you can have. With hundreds of sexy stories in 3 different languages and a sleek, user-friendly design, Audio Desires is the right fit to get you in the mood. Enjoy 50% off an annual membership or 20% off a monthly membership when you use promo code MANWHORE at audiodesires.com. You know you've made it in entertainment or are on your way out when you're helping dicks get and stay hard. Give your cock a natural performance boost with our sponsor, Joy Mode. No prescriptions, no drugs. It's just like a pre-workout, but for sex. Get 20% off your first order at usejoymode.com/manwhore. Again, that's usejoymode, USEJOYMODNE, and use promo code manwhore at checkout. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Buongiorno, buonasera, ciao. This is Brad Pitt from Inglourious Bastards, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Is that too old in a reference? Because it's just me, Billy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to your weekly slutty escape, to your weekly sex-positive entertainment to distract you from the deterioration of society and rise of fascism. I'm not really exaggerating about the fascism. They're starting to say it out loud. Some of y'all ain't paying attention. Jesus, there's a dude who's running for a statewide office who literally is saying, I just think if I'm governor, we should make the Republican votes in future elections count more than the Democrat votes. No, really, said that. These are real things happening. But hey, that's why we distract our things with things like, hot movie night. Yeah, last Thursday night, we had our very first ever hot movie night in the Champagne Room with my Patreon members. Had a nice little turnout for that. We gathered together to watch the adult film Deep Throat, a classic 70s skin flick with the absurd premise that there's a woman who's like not sexually satisfied, which could be anyone. Could be my guest this week, Kate Kelly. We get into it. But this woman, she's not sexually satisfied. And we know she's not sexually satisfying because in 70s porn, they still cared about visual storytelling. So they have established that she's not like having a satisfying sex life in an orgy scene where we see her friend is having great sex over here. And over here, she's not having great sex. But she is also still at an orgy. So I don't know how to marry those two concepts. But we see good sex, we see bad sex. And it turns out it's bad sex because her clit is located, oh no, in the back of her throat. And you think it's just like an absurd premise and then you'd see like typical porn, but like the movie only got weirder. Like it was an absurd premise that just got more and more absurd. There's a doctor who's very unprofessional and I think works in like someone's mom's basement. There's a nurse who's kind of a free use slut, but we never really established that. It was weird, and it was not at all weirder that I was watching it with you, with the listeners, with my my loyal Patreon supporters. I was surprised it wasn't really the like, hey, let's all jerk off together vibe that kind of can happen when I put my people together, when the peep show folks show up. Although then again, half the people had their cameras and mics off. So, hey, I don't know what they were doing on mute. But it was a good time. Like, the only rule I had was no chit chat during the dialogue because I'm trying to follow the story. But we had some fun conversations and commentary about the soundtrack during the sex scenes. It was a good time. We're definitely going to do it again next month. I'm going to pick a movie with, let's just say, a lot more drama, a lot more tension, a lot more conflict. Folks, if you want to email the show with your comments, your questions, your queries, your criticisms, what have you, send me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. You just may hear it on the show. We know what happened. I imagine we all feel some version of the same way about what was announced on Friday with the, overturning of Roe. I don't want to go on a big, long rant about it just because, I'm preaching to a choir, and I don't think that's necessary. Something tells me y'all show up each week for a distraction from that, so I'm going to try to be that. I will give you a warning, the rise of sex negativity I think we're all seeing. Porn registries being proposed in places like Utah, multiple states declaring porn a public health crisis. I think get ready if we do not have a right to some privacy from the government to enjoy pleasure with our meat bodies without causing harm to anyone else. I just get ready for op-eds about BDSM being abusive, about polyamory being adultery. First, you demonize, then you legislate. You demonize until you have enough drummed up public support from low information people that you can then pass the thing. And so if you don't want to get into political fights with people, well, speak up when they say some dumb shit like, oh, well, BDSM is just abusive. You can't do what self-respecting woman would want to be tied up or slapped in bed. Don't let the public opinion be built by their bullshit. People saying, porn is a health crisis. Shut it down and tell them there is no research to back that. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I'm going to keep on keeping on with my slut shit and hope in 10 years it is still legal for me to be so explicit with my sex stories on the internet. Who knows? That's why I rely on you fine people. Oh, this is such a sleazy, gross segue. This is why I rely on my listeners as a main staple in my business. So shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. Y'all keep this show going. You make it possible for sex positive content to be created. Because Lord knows the Facebook and Instagram algorithms of the world, the TikToks, they are not going to let us. So thank you, Nadine Shoe Booty. Hey, you know who you are. Thank you for your monthly support on Patreon. Yes, a fan whore appreciation moment. Oh, God, I'm worse than the DNC. Thank you, Nadine, for supporting the podcast. Hey, if your friends know, they know. Hope you're liking it smooth. You know what I'm talking about. If you want to support the podcast, receive your very own personalized, kind of subversive shout out about waxing, then you should support the Man Whore Podcast and my work on Patreon. And you can become a member today at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. All right. Now for this week's guest, Kate Kelly. This episode was recorded last week on Tuesday before the ruling came out. Although she was wearing a shirt that said I will aid and abet your abortion. And I think she wore that in anticipation that the Supreme Court could have announced it on that day. She's just like, I'm just kind of always ready for them to announce this bullshit. So I was like, do you have 7 versions of the shirt? Just wear one every day till it happens. But so that's why you're not going to hear us really talk about that, even though she is a brilliant legal mind who does a lot of work fighting for the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, which we do a Patreon bonus episode about. In this conversation, we're really going into her Mormon background. I've been following Kate Kelly on Twitter for years. Love her work. Love following what she's doing. Was thrilled to finally have her on the podcast. I think you're going to enjoy her too. Let's go chat with Kate Kelly, Esquire. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by AudioDesires.com, the Netflix of oral excitement. I've been loving Audio Desires' sexy stories. I almost get overwhelmed by all of the options. Hey, orgasm control, femdom, JOI, exhibitionism, even sweet stories of polyamorous love. Their sleek user interface is great for mobile when you want to just put yourself to sleep with your favorite reader's voice in your ears and your hand on your cunt or wrapped around your shaft. And now, Audio Desires has an exciting new partnership with the sex toy company Lovenz. Lovenz owners know that, you can sometimes sync your sex toy to your porn, and now Audio Desires is joining in the game. They've made it so you can sync some of their stories to your Lovenz vibrator so it hits you in the right spot when Sophia gets fingered by Susan in Not So Silent Night. It's going to vibrate in your ass each time Noah thrusts into Daniel. Yes, they have stories for every sexual orientation, every kink, every mood. And Audio Desires is hooking up my listeners with a very special offer. It's actually kind of insane. Get 50% off an Audio Desires annual membership or 20% off a monthly membership with promo code MANWHORE at sign up. Again, get half off on a massive library of stories to get you off for a whole year when you use promo code MANWHORE at audiodesires.com. Look, we've all seen those pills behind the counter at the gas stations. Horny goats and rhinos with boners, horribly branded erection pills. You don't know what's in them. They're not regulated. They got nasty side effects and can cause heart problems. I don't touch that shit. That's why I'm glad to be sponsored by Joy Mode, an all-natural, science-backed sexual performance booster. No headaches, no painful 4-hour erections, no blue tongue effect, if you know what I mean. I just stir it in a glass of water before a date like an electrolyte packet, and I've been getting better blood flow, firm erections, and an increased sexual drive. Joy Mode has been helping me, fix the post-breakup blues. Well, that and therapy. So if you want to spice things up in the bedroom, boost your sexual performance, hey, maybe relax knowing you have reinforcements on the way. Do it naturally, without the nasty prescription drugs. Try Joy Mode's special offer for Fan Whore Nation. Go to usejoymode.com/manwhore or enter promo code manwhore at checkout for 20% off your first order. Yes, that's usejoymode.com. usejoymode.com/manwhore. Better know how to spell that one for 20% off. Thank you, Joy Mode, for the better boners. Now let's get to the show. And who's the hottest Supreme Court justice?
Ooh, I'm going to say Sotomayor for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah. I mean, slim pickings.
It's slim pickings. It's between them two for you. And that's just, poor Elena.
I know. Yeah, she doesn't really come out swinging in the same way.
No, she doesn't.
So.
How anticipatory were you of this decision today that did not come?
Like, what do I think is going to happen, or when?
I had a thought on that, and then I heard the straw clink, because I'm not used to the metal straws yet.
Dang it, sorry. This is all part of the Basement Podcast.
Basement Dispatches. This is when everything goes nuclear. Like, this is where you'll be podding from.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Stay tuned, everyone. Yeah, I don't know. The decision. I feel two ways about it. One way, I feel like, okay, they've already, the old adage, believe who they are when they tell you who they are. And they've already leaked the draft, obviously. But then I'm like, also, I feel like they're just going to like pull like a bait and switch on us where they're going to like be like, it's going to not completely overturn Roe. And they're going to be like, you see how bad it could have been? It wasn't that bad. So you should be grateful.
It's very abusive.
Exactly. An abusive system. Like, yeah, it manipulates people. So that's how I feel right now.
Have you always had this stance on the issue with your very LDSC background?
Yeah, I mean, this is what people and systems often do is like, for example, with the Mormon church, it's like, I'm doing this because I love you. I had a trial and it was literally called a court of love. That's what it's called.
Wait, what? Stop, what?
The
They didn't cover that in Under the Banner of Heaven. I did not get to that episode, apparently.
So the trial is literally called a court of love.
And so what kind of trial is this?
So I was
Like a church trial?
Yeah. So it's conducted by 3 men. It's a long story, but if you're charged as a woman, it's conducted by 3 men. It's a pretty informal proceeding. If you're charged as a man, it's conducted by 15 men, 3 presiding, 6 speaking for, and 6 speaking against. The whole system is very obviously rigged, but it's always framed as a benefit to the person
And
who's
is
being oppressed.
when you say charge, like for what kind of
So I was
stuff?
charged with apostasy.
Which is
It's really just whatever they want it to mean. But they say it is like speaking ill of the Lord's anointed, which means you're like challenging the leaders of the church.
oh well, I mean, from your wiki, it seemed like you were quite the mouthy Mormon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They didn't seem to dig that too much.
Not fans. Spoiler alert, it didn't work.
How do you come to be? How do you come of age with such like a strong fucking opinion on anything from that culture?
Yeah, well, both of my parents are converts to Mormonism, so they met. I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay.
Both of my parents are converts to the church. They met the missionaries when they were already married, so they were young married people in college. They met the Mormon missionaries, took the discussions, and they got baptized. Like, it does actually work sometimes. And so, but they were not raised Mormon. And so I think in some ways that made my experience different. For example, my mom was an attorney. She graduated from law school. She worked outside the home.
Was she allowed to continue being an attorney?
Yeah, she balanced it in other ways. So she was like super mom in other ways. Like, she made our clothes, and she was really into scrapbooking, and she did canning and, all these different things, quilting, that Mormon moms do. So she kind of like tried to make up for her sinful career, aka just being a lawyer, by kind of like excelling in the domestic realm as well.
And so you feel like they raised you with a little bit more sense of self?
Yeah. My parents, my dad especially, who was raised Lutheran, taught us that we could be anything we wanted to be. He always encouraged me. He, had me do internships. He wanted me to do whatever it is I wanted to do. So that was, I think, rare in the culture.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just also who my parents are. They were very devout Mormons, because that's like what converts are. They have this like convert zeal. They're like really into it.
Yeah. It's like people who just joined CrossFit.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're telling everyone about it.
Here's my referral link.
Yes.
We got to get the matching clothes.
All cults operate in the same way. And so, yes, they had this convert zeal, but they also encouraged us to like think for ourselves.
How dare they?
Exactly.
How dare they? Well, I'm here right now with the very much thinks for herself legal extraordinaire, Kate Kelly, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so, wait, so what was it like to be like a coming of age gal surrounded? Because I imagine you were surrounded, like you were in a Mormon community.
I actually grew up in Oregon, so I was not surrounded by other Mormons. I was the only Mormon in my school and in my friend group.
So to you, you're just like, I'm doing Mormon the best out of anyone in my school.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was the Mormon girl.
I'm surrounded by heathens, so it's okay if like we let me like have opinions.
I'm making it to heaven. I don't know about any of these other people. Yeah, it was Mormons call it the mission field. So Mormons call it like anywhere that's not Utah is the mission field, which means you have to convert people. And so I was raised in the mission field, and I felt like very special. Like being Mormon was a big part of my uniqueness, or what made me me.
Right. And then, like, when you stopped being Mormon, you got the glasses? Is that...
Unfortunately, I've always had glasses.
These are very distinct, wonderful glasses, but these are very much
Thank you.
I picked these out. I did not get the ones that insurance is going to pay the whole amount for.
These are what I realized. I was gonna get LASIK surgery, but then I was like, oh wait, glasses can be a fashion item. And I was like, I'll just get 75 pairs of glasses. Yeah, I feel like in some ways it's funny because I did express myself and try to make myself different when I was really immersed in Mormon culture. Like I went to Brigham Young University, which is they call the Lord's University in Provo, Utah, and the only Mormon school, big Mormon school. And so when I didn't grow up being surrounded by Mormons, but then when I went to school, it was like I was swimming in a sea of, I think, 40,000. It's a very big school. Other young, enthusiastic, dedicated Mormons.
So for like the first 22 years of your life, you're kind of always a fish out of water.
Yes. Yeah. I was, again, it's the thing that made me unique, which is ironic because Mormonism is such a like a lockstep, like obedient group. But for me, it's the thing that made me different than my peers and made me like stand out.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other Mormon friends, and most of my friends didn't understand Mormonism.
So what was it like to be like a high school gal surrounded by heathen gals who you have to like kind of call friends?
Yeah. Gentiles, as Mormons call them, which is another... Anyway, Mormons are really got some interesting lingo. I liked it because it made me unique. My parents, I lived in Oregon. It was a place with lots of different people and different opinions, and like Mormonism was like my thing that I did with my family, and we went to church on Sunday, and we had this like small group, it's a very small congregation. And so like a lot more is accepted. They're a lot more flexible. It's like, we need everybody to just come. Yeah. So like, if you want to smoke in between, meetings or in the parking lot, or whatever you have going on, like we just need you to come and like, we'll just accept you. And that's different in other places with Mormon majority populations.
Right, because they can afford to expend, but we were like, we gotta cover the tith over here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, like, how did this affect your views on like dating and relations? It sounds like it wasn't as strict as what we're seeing in some of these new media projects that are coming out. I think some of us have been watching the Amazon show, the Under the Banner of Heaven, and then there's that new documentary out on Netflix. So, it doesn't seem like you were raised in such a strict sense of that. So what did your parents teach you about others?
Again, my parents were converts, so it's important to remember that. Sure. But I wasn't supposed to date until I turned 16, and then it was only group dating. And then when I went to college, my parents never told me this, but the explicit understanding at BYU is that women went there to find husbands, and that's it. And like when you found a husband, you dropped out because then you had your purpose and you didn't need your degree. They claim otherwise. Like they'll say, oh no, there's Mormon leaders who say like women need to get degrees in case their husbands die. Like that's literally what they say. Like if your husband dies or like, and is otherwise unable to, be the breadwinner, then the woman would need a degree. But otherwise, there's no reason. And so, when I got there, I was like, wait, this is not for me.
You're like, I want to have a real job thing.
This is not going to work. Like, I don't want kids. This is not like, I'm not going to have a husband who bosses me around for eternity. Like, that's just I'm not signing up for that. And my parents, that's not how they were. They shared family responsibilities equally. My mother worked. Again, I think it was this funny clash where my parents and my home community were not as strict. But then when I went to like the flagship, when I went to the Mormon Mecca, I was like, oh, wait, this is different than I thought.
And that's not even like talking about like, say, a dating culture. This is simply like your purpose is to go have a husband and you're like, I would like to do a little more.
But that is dating. Like if you're dating people at BYU, the only point of doing that is to get married.
And then what was your experience like dating in college?
I was like, because of this very, very strong pressure for very young girls to get married, I made a goal my freshman year not to go on any dates because I was like, I didn't want to get married. I was like, I'm 18. I don't want to get married. So I was like, that's it. I'm not dating anyone because they're all going to think a certain thing of me. And I'm like unwilling to comply with that expectation. Also, spoiler alert, I was also queer. So like I'm not dating anyone seemed perfectly fine for a year in college. Like that seemed fine. I'd rather just like plan slumber parties with my dorm mates.
Did you know that about yourself back then though?
No. Absolutely not.
We'll get to that in a little bit. So when you finally do start dating at BYU, like what's that experience like? Because you want to do things. And I imagine the guys you were meeting have an expectation when they meet anyone at BYU.
Yeah, exactly. So I was always like, if you're a minority of anything in a very large institution, you find each other. And so we were, we found each other, this group of like Mormon misfits who, had progressive ideas, didn't really fit the mold, didn't look like other people, didn't act like other people. So we kind of like found each other.
What were some of the other misfits like? So like you were just like, I'm not into this whole having a kid and being subservient to the man thing. What were some of the other misfits?
Oh my God. I'm still friends with all of them. And like none of us are Mormon anymore. Actually, I had one holdout. I had one Mormon friend still from my BYU group, but she finally left. So I don't think I actually have any close friends that are still Mormon. And so it was like, we'd meet each other. There was a club called Parity. It was just kind of like a vague name for equality. And we're like kind of secretly Parity. Yeah. We were like, okay, we're all like, it was under the radar. You know what I mean? Or like, there'd be like service clubs or like Amnesty International, like people who cared about human rights. Like those are the kind of the ways that we found each other.
Sure.
And then we were all just like, I don't know, wore vintage clothes. And like, BYU is actually a very, very fun place, especially for a Mormon kid, because no one drinks. So you don't feel left out. And everyone is kind of has the same... I was in the way I was raised, I was the odd one out. When I got to BYU, I was like, everyone is just like me. Everyone believes me. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a freak. I don't have any, limitations that no one else has. And so everyone is very, very creative. Like, so we can't drink, we can't have sex, we don't do drugs, we like don't do any, we don't even watch rated R movies. You know what I mean? Like we're very, very like wholesome teenagers, basically.
No good fellas on campus.
Literally. There's
the biggest loss I thought of.
There's also no, like, you're not allowed to drink caffeine. Like, these are like uncaffeinated, like, kids. And so we all were very, very creative. Like, in order to have fun together, you have to do costume parties and go ice blocking, which is like a thing where you buy these big, in the summertime, you buy these big hunks of ice and slide down hills like you're sledding. This is a thing in Utah.
Great. Sounds like a blast.
It's called ice blocking, as a pretty straightforward name. But there's literally like tens of thousands of kids looking to have fun.
Yeah.
With no substance and basically no naughtiness.
Yeah.
And so you're all just like doing creative shit all the time. And it's really fun.
So what was like the most creative date you went on then?
Oh my God. Also, this is another Utah
You're not
thing.
going out to get drinks.
Oh no, of course not. No,
Right.
there's not even any bars. There's nowhere to get drinks. Like,
Where's the Gentile drink?
You can't.
Surely there's a couple around.
Not in Utah County. Like, Utah County, I think, is over 90% Mormon. So, like, I don't know if a bar would, like, survive. There was one at one point on Center Street, but I think it closed because for obvious reasons. So, yeah, like, this is another thing about Utah. I don't know, maybe they do this other places. They do creative date asking. So, like, you have to do this very elaborate thing to ask someone on a date, especially to, like, a formal dance or something. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you would, like, create a scavenger hunt. And you would, like, deliver the note, and then the person would go on the scavenger hunt, and then they would find all these notes, and then the end of it would be, like, a bouquet of balloons, and you'd have to pop every balloon, and then you'd find an answer, and then the answer is, like, the message is, will you go to homecoming with me? But then the other person has to answer with a creative answer.
Oh my God. This is so extra.
It's so extra. You have no idea.
Such a viral potential.
Yes, I'm sure now. I mean, this was when I graduated in 2006. So
Where was TikTok in 2006?
It was before TikTok. Thank God. But now, yes, exactly. So then, like, for example, I remember one of the times I went to homecoming, this kid wrote a song for me. He played the piano because, of course, Mormon. So, like, everyone is, like, an accomplished pianist. And so he wrote this song for me and, like, performed this concert and, like, asked me to the homecoming dance. And then in return, but I was very annoyed and I didn't want to ask. I'm from Oregon. I'm like, this is weird. I don't want to do this. So then in order to answer the kid, I was like, okay, yes. And he's like, no. This is unacceptable. You have to answer me in the creative way.
Yeah.
So then I decided, fine, I'm begrudging him, but also I have to answer in this creative way. So I covered his entire dorm window with cheese, and I wrote in easy cheese, "This is cheesy, but yes." So this is what you have to do.
This is what happens when we don't let college kids drink.
This is what happens when you have a city of 100,000 people who are virgins and don't drink. Exactly.
Virgins. Okay. I still don't believe most of that shit. I know too much is going on behind the scenes that they're not saying out loud.
I don't know, because, like, I don't know how it is these days. Kids are probably much more rebellious, but we were, like, psychotically earnest. We were like, because Mormons believe that, first of all, you have to do, like, very frequent interviews with your ecclesiastical leader in order to stay enrolled at the university. Okay. So, like, some dude is, like, constantly interviewing you about, like, what you're doing.
Never some lady.
No, of course. Hence the problem. So you're constantly being interviewed and, like, interrogated, basically, about everything. Like, all the rules and the honor code and, like, your sex life, which doesn't exist, basically. And like, masturbation, like, everything. Like, an old man is, like, constantly, like, literally, like, interviewing you in a room alone and, like, taking notes. And, like, depending on those answers, you can be kicked out of school.
If you get kicked out for masturbation, I feel like there's a little on you. Because, like, you shouldn't get caught.
No one else was there. But, but the thing is, in your mind, God is there. Yeah. So, like, in your mind, it doesn't matter that you have to tell the truth, because God will know matter.
And you thought God knew.
Of course. Yeah. So, like, if you're a obedient, believing Mormon, it's like the guy will know no matter what you tell him, because God knows and he works for God. You know,
he
basically.
works for God.
He basically.
God signs his paycheck. So.
Yes. I mean, in this case, literally, if they, professor at BYU, and it's the Lord's university, the Lord is signing the paycheck. So, yeah, you don't actually have to it doesn't matter if someone else rats on you, which like is a thing at BYU. Like they have a thing called the honor code, and like students can tell on other students.
My boarding school was like that, so I feel you.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
called Brother's Keeper.
Ooh, yes, exactly like that.
And if you didn't do it, you then were also in trouble.
Yes, because you were like an accomplice, a silent accomplice.
I had a huge crush on a chick, and then she like wrote me this like love poem. I was like, oh, I think finally someone's gonna kiss me. And then I found she let me know that she fucked a guy, and I was like, I like broke down because I was like, oh no, I have to like get her to turn herself in, or I have to turn her in, and I, high school love her. She's never touched me, but I do, and yeah, I was like, I remember like being in full tears in the woods, like contemplating, do I turn her in? Do I tell her to? Do I keep quiet?
Oh my God.
It fucks with your head a little bit.
Yes.
When you turn like your fellow students into the police state.
But in this case, you're turning yourself in.
Yeah.
Because the person who's there in the room is God. And God is going to whisper in this dude's ear what you did. So you might as well just confess.
Yeah.
Because then you can repent, and then it's less bad. So we were extraordinarily like earnest and truthful to like a crazy fault, I think. So yeah, no one I knew was having sex.
Okay.
Including myself.
Well, I guess when did you like find? Well, I read that you had a husband.
Yes, I was married for a decade.
For a decade?
Yes. I mean, I'm Mormon, so
So only until like in the last, I don't know, is X years?
yeah, I got divorced in 2015.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yes.
I feel like you're still like semi like doing the world.
Oh, that's
it's 7 years.
amazing. It's so funny that people don't know this about me because a decade is a long time.
Oh my. Well, how'd you meet him?
At BYU.
But he knew you were like, I'm not doing this child thing. I want to have a career. And he was cool with that.
Yeah. Like he was part of this Mormon misfits group.
Okay.
And like, pretty much a feminist as you can be as a Mormon man, which is like a pretty big caveat. But yeah, so I didn't take his surname. I didn't I was planning on going to law school, which I did. So yeah, he was the only reason I agreed to it, obviously, was because he was supportive of that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this might be my only chance to find a Mormon man who's like, cool, be a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm up for that.
Well, then, how was the relationship? Was it?
It was
copacetic?
awesome, honestly. Really great person. And again, like, this is not a large group of Mormon men who are like, cool. You can like keep your own last name and like be a lawyer and not have any kids. And I'm cool with it. So in that department, I think it was sort of like the lottery, and we like traveled the whole world together. We lived in Costa Rica, we lived in Kenya, we lived in Mexico, like we lived in tons of different places and like had a lot of fun. It was kind of like we were just friends.
Yeah.
Like very, very good friends.
Well, I mean, when you say very, very good friends, you mean like, cause like very,
I mean, we were married,
Right.
so like there was also no escape. But like we didn't really have a sexual relationship. Not really. I mean, I didn't even know I was queer at the time. I just like Mormon women, and this is also, I've now found out, not just Mormon women, but almost all women who are in heterosexual relationships are like extraordinarily disappointed in their sex lives almost always.
Yeah.
So like talk to any heterosexual woman.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, yeah, sex sucks, but that's just how it is. And it's like, oh, well, if you talk to other women, which is rare, especially in these like high demand religions, that's like the PC way of saying cult. So
high demand religion.
high demand religion,
As in like
is
the,
like what
the religion is in high demand.
religion demands a lot of you.
Oh god, yeah, okay.
So high demand religions, aka cults. There's like a lot of academic discourse about whether or not cults is an appropriate word.
Sure.
I think it is. Other people do not. Anyway, the point is, in high demand religions, women don't have a lot of space to talk with each other, especially about taboo topics. And of course, sex is universally a taboo topic, not just in cults. So there isn't really a space to talk about it. But when you do talk about it, everyone has the same experience. I remember we had this therapist, this like intimacy, yada, yada therapist. Like she specializes in Mormon relationships. She did her PhD on Mormon women and desire. She was like, so I sought her out, obviously. And I remember she accidentally one time, this is probably like a breach of protocol and like her ethical standards, she accidentally sent an email out un-BCC'd to everyone who sees her, advertising some class or workshop or something. And I was immediately, of course, like scanning. And they're like, everyone I know is on this list, which means everyone I know has intimacy problems, quote unquote. And I was like, oh, it's not just me. It's literally everyone I know. And then when you start talking about it, it's like, it almost normalizes it in a way. It's like, oh, this isn't our problem. It's just universal. It's
a problem that's out there.
It's a problem that everyone has. And so then you're like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. It almost normalizes it in a way. So yeah, I would say you go from like suffering in silence to normalizing it to being like, oh, wait, no.
There's another way.
There's another way. Then the other way obviously comes from talking to secular people and like people outside of this like tiny world. But that doesn't happen for most people for a very long time.
And what was that experience like for you when you got to get there?
I would say, well, first of all, that is not why I got divorced. Sure. I probably would have just been like, I'm asexual forever or whatever.
I mean,
like
separate from like the divorce stuff, just the idea of like when you find out that there is another way. Yeah, I gotta imagine is like a big feeling and
yeah, I feel like for me, so I got divorced for many reasons. One of them is the excommunication and like when I was excommunicated, one day I was Mormon and like literally the next day I was not. And like everyone in the world read about it in the New York Times. You know what I mean? Including like my in-laws. Like,
why was your excommunication in the New York Times?
It was like a very big story at the time. And like because it had been so rare for Mormon women to like, organize a protest and demonstrate at the priesthood session in downtown Salt Lake. Like,
and I had a great publicist, and so it's.
I didn't even know what a publicist was, but we were just like sincere, trying to do our best, and like this really appealed to people because they were like, "Whoa, holy shit! Like Mormon women are rising up! Like, wow, this is like the next level." So, so it became this huge story, and my in-laws read about it in the New York Times, and it just like it placed me into the other category immediately. Like I was Mormon, and then I was like really, really not Mormon. Like I was exiled. I was an apostate. I was like out. And that, you basically have to build from scratch. Like you have to rethink everything in your life. Yeah. You have to, in my case, literally buy new underwear because Mormons wear these special.
Wait, you had the special underwear?
Yes, of course. Yes, yeah.
Wait, so did you have to like go shopping and be like, why this looks painful to wear?
Totally. I went to Nordstrom Rack. I still remember this, and I was like, because it was like closest to where I was or whatever. And I was like picking out underwear. I'd never bought regular people underwear as an adult. And so I had this like, Mormon garments are like to your knee, basically like white bike shorts. Yeah. So they're to your knee, which is weirder for women than men. Mm-hmm. And then it's like a cap sleeve t-shirt that you wear under a regular t-shirt. Okay. So it's like it's like from shoulders to knees, you're completely covered. Yeah. And so that makes them very bulky. Mm-hmm. So I like put them all in a garbage bag. Literally, I like put them in a garbage bag. I think 2 garbage bags. Honestly, they're very bulky. So, and like, but they're also expensive. So I was like, I'm going to appeal my conviction. So I was going to like take them out to the trash. And then I was like, oh, if I win my appeal, which, again, this is just like my eternal optimism. Sure. I was like, if I win my appeal, I don't want to have to buy new underwear. So I like took them back inside and I put them under my bed. But then I had to buy new underwear. So I like go to Nordstrom Rack and I'm like looking through the underwear. And again, this was like at the time a very big story, especially in Utah. and I was recognized immediately. So like people started coming up to me and being like, oh, like, hey, I heard what happened. Da, da, and I'm like holding underwear.
Like secular underwear.
They're just like wanting to die. Like I just want to die. And so I had a friend with me and I was just like, let's just get this pack or whatever. You know, I just like grabbed some pack of something and I'm like, I got to get out of here. This is just like excruciating. But yeah, it's like that experience, but for every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Where you're like, what does a regular person do? Like
For fun.
or life
Yeah.
or like anything, or what do they eat? What do they do? Where do they live? How do they, you know, in some ways I was a little bit insulated. I was an attorney. I like had a career. I had gone to school. I knew secular people, obviously.
Right.
But I wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
And so it was a question of like I call it dismantle and rebuild. So it was like this phase of like completely dismantling everything so you can build a new structure of your life and and your identity. And so, yeah, then
One of those things is a marriage.
yes, one
Yeah.
of those things is the marriage. So then I'm like, wait, why are we together? Like we met at BYU, we got married in the temple. Really the only thing one of the strongest things we had in common is that we are both Mormon and I'm not anymore. And so we didn't have anything. Like when we dismantled, it was like, oh, there's nothing to rebuild.
Traveling's kind of fun, but I don't know if we need to like have a full relationship based on it.
Exactly. So yeah, so we got divorced. And then I was dating again for the first time since I was a teenager.
And what the fuck was that like?
It was insane. I didn't know what apps were.
What was the first date you did?
Oh my God.
Like post-Mormonism. And by the way, just real quick, like, are you still believing in the Heavenly Father, like during that excommunication?
No. For me, it was like it was like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Okay.
Because the church revealed itself to be like very violent and punitive and all these things. But for me, it was like a lot of people that takes like years, if not decades to unravel. And for me, it was like ripping off a Band-Aid. Like, oh shit, like this is all a lie. And the basically everything I believed was a lie,
Right.
which is excruciating, but it didn't take decades. You know, like it's a really hard, short amount of time, but then you come out of it, I think, easier.
And that's being raised with as soft a touch of religion as I guess it sounds like as Mormonism could have gone.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And even then it's still so in there.
Well, and I didn't know anything else.
Right.
My parents were converts, but I was raised Mormon.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any other way of being or any other community.
Yeah.
I had also at this point served a Mormon mission. So I had also converted other people to join Mormonism, which is, anyway, we could talk a lot about Mormon missions, but the point is, the main point of Mormon missions is to convert the individual, not the other people.
Sure.
So that you double down so hard on the belief system and you double down so hard on the community and you see everyone else as an outsider because you're constantly being rejected because it's truly insane to walk up to a stranger and be like, do you believe in Jesus and do you want to join my church? So you're facing constant rejection and that builds a sense of like the only people who will accept me truly are my people.
Right.
And so you spend 2 years indoctrinating yourself. So I had been through that. And so, yeah, it's a very difficult, it's just like the weirdest thing you could go through is like, I can't even describe it. It's like going to another country. It's like going to another country and like learning new customs and the grocery store is totally different. And like, you don't understand people and the language is different. And like, you don't have a shared background.
Yeah.
Like you didn't watch the same shows growing up. You have almost nothing in common with people. You know, it's interesting and cool, but then it's also very like, there's a lot of culture shock and like, sorry, this is my sister.
Sure.
It's like, it's just alienating. So, yeah, that's how, what was the first date I went on after? So I got divorced and like, kind of started like, I don't know. I feel like maybe this is common, but you like kind of reconnect with people you knew from before.
Okay.
Like other
But
ex-Mormons.
who did you have from before? Like just the misfit group?
Yeah. So like, I went on a couple dates with a guy I had dated in college who had now left Mormonism. I like met this man who I eventually ended up dating for a long time, 3 years, I think. A number of years, let's say.
You're not under oath. It's okay.
Yeah, like I'm a lawyer. I'm like, how exactly long was it? So I ended up dating this guy who I met through a friend, basically, like who ran a like Mormon satire website. It was basically like The Onion, but for Mormonism.
Oh, that's a good fit for you. Like, getting out the church, crack some jokes on it together.
Exactly.
Yeah. Were you shocked by the sexual culture that was existing around you?
I don't know if I was I mean, I like watched movies and like I knew what other people did. And I think the thing that was very jarring was it was almost like I was an adolescent. Like I hadn't learned conversations about consent or like boundaries or like pleasure. Because
I mean, that sounds like a standard American experience.
Of course. But instead of being 18, I'm 30. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and I hadn't learned that through any other way or any other time. And I also didn't have sex when I was dating. Right. So the first and only person I had sex with was my husband after we were married. So
you didn't even seem too wild about that.
No. But again, that's like literally every woman I knew. So I was like, okay, this is a universally terrible experience. Yeah. And of course it's a universally terrible experience. You're taught like it's bad, horrible. You're going to hell. It's the worst thing you can do. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the outside, they're like, it's terrible. But then, all you have to do is stick it in, and it does. That is enough to feel great. Like, it can always be better, but the bare minimum on our side still's pretty dope.
It's like,
right? Like
exactly.
If I'm going to have the worst sexual experiences, there's still, like, people ask, like, often they'll be like, are there bad blowjobs? I'll be like, the worst blowjob, aside from it being bitten off, aside from an injury, the worst one's pretty great. Like,
right. It still accomplishes the goal. And is a pleasurable experience for men, but also, like you said, that's right. Our entire culture, not just Mormonism. Yeah. But I think Mormonism is like this really, really exacerbated, like extreme anti-sex culture. Yeah, I mean, it's an anti-sex, anti-coffee cult, basically.
Anti-sex, anti-coffee, the two worst things. And were you only dating men coming out of Mormonism?
Yes, yeah. So I was dating...
are you still not even cognizant to yourself?
No. Like, not at all. Because I was never like... And this is a very, like... I've now come to learn this is a very like gay man thing, like being very, I thought coming out was like you felt torture your whole life. Since you were 3 years old, you only ever wanted to date men, like you knew you were gay since you were in kindergarten, and like finally you came out and like, and I'm like, okay, well that's not my experience. So like I must not be gay. And like now I realize, oh, that's because male narratives dominate all of our culture, including LGBTQ in the LGBTQ community, and that's actually not the experience of most women, and that's why we don't realize a lot of times that we're queer. So yes, I was dating men, and then I was like, man, I thought it was Mormon men, but it's just all men. They're like so shitty. And so I moved to New York and I started dating other men, and I was like, oh wow, no, this is just all of you are terrible people. Terrible.
Better dressed in New York, but terrible.
Better dressed, but equally, if not more terrible. And like, I just, dating in New York is like such a thing, but it's just like really insufferable men who are like, even like woke men are like, oh yeah, I'd never really considered women's rights before. I'm just really into immigration reform or whatever. I'm like, oh, cool. So 50% of the population you don't give a shit about? Great, cool, very woke.
Wait, was that considered woke?
Yes. Oh yeah. This is like a civil rights attorney, like very prominent person.
Okay.
Who like is their entire persona and job and work is to like, fight for the rights of other people, but doesn't know anything about women's rights or gender equality.
Okay.
This is common. And then I was like, oh, all men are terrible. It's not just Mormon men. Like, it's all men. It's like you think when you get out of Mormonism, you think you're leaving this island. Like you think you're like, oh, great, I'm leaving patriarchy. Like good riddance, and you sail off and then you arrive in New York City and you're like, oh, fuck. It's like that here too. And so you realize everywhere is patriarchy.
It's just patriarchy with different choreography.
Yes. And different outfits and different underwear. So yeah. So I'm dating in New York, yada, yada. Long story short, I'm like, all right, this is my chance. Like, who knows? Basically, my partner, Jamie, doesn't like when I describe it like this. And it is more complicated than this. But basically, I made a political choice. Mm-hmm. I was like, I am going to date women because this is my affinity group. These are people I care about. These are the people I admire. These are the people, like, I'm just going to date women. And, like, I don't know if I'm queer, but I also don't not know. Like, I have my entire scaffolding of my life did not eliminated that possibility entirely. So I'm like, how do I know? Like, maybe I am, and I just don't. I've been so indoctrinated that it never even occurred to me. Mm-hmm. And like, as you can tell by now, I'm a person who's like really, really committed to authenticity. So
I mean, I could very much tell which building was yours.
So I'm like, all right, we're doing this. So and
you're doing this being like, I don't even know if I'll have sexual attraction, but at least I'll have a better time on the date.
And also I'll know if it's a possibility, because until you try, it's like unless you like, I don't know.
I mean, I've had many a man in the West Village give me that argument. How do you know unless you haven't tried?
How do you know unless you haven't tried? And for me, I was like, again, it's not. I'm not just a normal person. I'm raised in like a very, very homophobic cult, like from birth, and so it's not like I was like, oh, open to it, and like interacted with gay people, out gay people growing up, and like knew, I didn't have any of that. Mm-hmm. So without like giving it the college try, I had no way of knowing if I was queer or not. So I literally like switched the apps. I just switched it over.
What'd you switch to? Or did you switch the preferences on?
I switched the preferences to women, and I made some little I had my friends help me write my thing, because I'm like, I also need, and also like all my friends are gay, of course, because like that's just queer people find each other, even if they don't know they're queer. Hello, everyone. If all of your friends are queer, you probably are too. So
I gotta go journal.
So I had my friends help me write this little profile, and because I also don't want to like trick people that I like know what's going on. I have no idea. So I think I wrote this thing. I think my friend Sarah, who's the director of Equality Wyoming, wrote this thing for me. Oh, sorry. She wrote this thing for me that, I think it said like, I was raised, something about how I was raised to believe certain people fit at the table, but I'm trying to see if I can't. It was beautiful.
It sounds very beautiful for a Tinder bio.
It was beautiful, guys. Believe me. And so basically I said like, I'm just coming out and like figuring myself out. And if people want to join me at this table, do. And then of course, because they're lesbians.
Little chair emoji. Let me pull the seat out for you. Come join me.
Oh my God. So many cute lesbians are like messaging me. I don't know. I think I dated like every lesbian professor in Manhattan.
How did it feel to get all that attention?
Oh, so great. And also women are wonderful. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And like also, but the problem was I was very used to heterosexual everything.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know like who paid, who did things, who like made the first move, who made the plans, who did like, I don't know any of these things. When my partner Jamie and I went on our first date, I forgot that she followed me on Twitter, and I tweeted, I'll never get used to going to the same bathroom as my date. Because we're at the Met, and we like walk into, I'm like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And she's like, I have to go too. And then we walk into the same bathroom. I was like, this is terrifying. So anyway, I got over it. Dear reader, I got over it. But I think I just switched into my mind. I started dating women, but I just like one woman, I went on like 9 dates with her and I never even held her hand. And I'm like, are we just friends? Are we just like going to the RBG movie and shopping together? Like, I don't get this world.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it. And all my friends are like, you're not gay. Like, da, 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 da. You just want to be gay. And I'm like, maybe, but like, I don't know, you know? So anyway, I finally had sex with a woman. God bless her. And it was not my partner, my current partner, another woman. Because I was going on lots of dates with lots of people because I didn't know, you know.
New York City is
New
a
York
very
City.
fluid and actual fluid city, you know.
Beautiful people, very smart. Like I said, every lesbian professor in New York. And, you know, I went to the Dyke March for the first time and I literally had been out for like 5 minutes. I saw like 7 people I had gone on dates with. I was like, what is this? Yeah. This town is so small.
It's like the entire app on one block.
Yes.
It's like they're all in line outside a Cubby. You know?
Yes. And I'm like, hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. Of course, I'm nice and everyone is nice to each other because we're lesbians. But so, yeah, I started... I don't know. I just changed. Yeah. And then I was like, this is awesome, obviously. And this sounds so dumb. And it probably is. I don't know. I'm Mormon, so I like believe in signs, you know? But like the first time I had sex with a woman, I was like, oh, yes. This is the place, as Utah State song goes. Like, that's what Brigham Young said when he got to Utah. He looked out on the valley and said, this is the place.
Did he sing it?
Probably. No. He's Mormon. So he's like campy and queer. Nice. This is the place. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to work. Yeah. And she was great and we're still friends. But, of course, again, lesbians.
Right. Helped you move it?
Helped me move it.
Yeah, I'll get the backside of the couch. Congrats on the place, you two.
Actually, that person, I told that person about Jamie, my current partner, and she was like, oh, yeah, I think she's the person for you. And I was like, what?
That's so cute.
And she's like, you talk about religion so much. And Jamie is a theologian. She went to Yale. Yeah. She got a divinity degree. Like, she's obviously, you know, we actually met at a women's ordination conference in Philadelphia. So, yeah, the original girl was like, I think this other person is the person for you.
So she like encouraged you to ask her out or go on a date? So you reached out, you asked her out?
So Jamie reached out to me and we had met at a conference. Mm-hmm. So I was like, and I say yes to everyone, as you know. Okay. I'm like, sure. So Jamie reached out to me and said, oh, I see you're in New York. Because I came out on Twitter and I just said I'm queer. Because it felt weird. Like eventually I was going to end up dating someone and no one knew that I was queer. Uh-huh. And I'm Mormon, so I'm very like earnest at all times.
You're also like a public personality at that point, right? Like, you know.
So I'm like...
I was probably following you at that point. You know, it's like, so what does it feel, before we get into Jamie, it's like, what's it feel like to tweet... Almost like, because Twitter is like a press release. It's the modern day press release. Yeah. So what's that like to hit enter on that and know that that's out there and it don't really come back?
It felt great because, again, I'm like so committed to authenticity. I'm like, everyone must know everything at all times and I have to be 100% authentic at all times. Yeah. I've since dialed that down a little bit and decided like,
difficult, right?
There are things that I can keep to myself, you know, like where I live and what I do. And so, yeah, it felt great. I just said, I'm queer. That's all I said. I was like, I could have this whole treatise, but like also people don't need to know and probably don't care. So... do you have any concerns about like backlash from the before times, from family? Well, my family is not on Twitter. That's why I came out on Twitter, because I was like, my mom will never see this. Sure, but I mean, like you're also like, being so public. I imagine it's going to get back to her, as opposed to if you had 200 followers, you know, on a private account. Yes, so yes, it did get back to her, but I had like a chance to get some feedback from other people who were very encouraging before I came out to my parents. Mm-hmm. Which was nice. Like immediately, like someone sent me a dozen rainbow roses. People like friends were very, very encouraging. And also like, I feel like this happens with a lot of queer people, if not all queer people. You're like, I'm queer. And they're like, yeah, duh. Like,
it's like my friend Andrea who says like, yeah, Bailey, I know you're autistic. We don't have to do this test.
like,
but yeah.
you just know. So yeah, I think a lot of people were probably very unsurprised at this development. I was probably the most surprised.
Is there a reason why you use the word queer and not say lesbian?
So I'm in a lesbian relationship, but I identify as like pansexual.
Okay.
But yeah, I say queer, just like umbrella term.
Okay.
When I was dating men after I got divorced, I did enjoy sex.
Okay.
So like I was like, oh yeah, like I could do this. Like, you know, this is pleasurable.
Different from when you were with the ex-husband.
Yes, yeah. We just like never really had any chemistry.
Okay.
But I also like didn't have anything to compare that to.
Right. Naturally.
So I'm like, I was young when I got married. I'd never had sex with anyone else. I was raised in an anti-sex cult. Like, you know, so I'm like, maybe this is just how it is. And it turns out, no, that's not how it is. We didn't have any compatibility. We had no way of knowing that before we were already married. And like, you know, heads up, kids, have sex with anyone before you marry them. Please, for the love of God.
A few times, at least.
Please.
I beg of you.
Please.
All.
But yeah, so I had sex with other men and like, you know, enjoyed it. Not like a ton, honest. You know, I was like, I'm going to have my slut phase. And it lasted like 2 weeks, but still.
Because you're like, this, it's not that great. No.
They're still men. So
it's okay. I don't think anyone's going to take away your feminist credentials if you did enjoy sex with a man once.
Oh, no, totally. That's why I say queer and not lesbian, because I feel like it's important that, like, you know, people be authentic. So yeah, but I am in a lesbian relationship. So that's fine too.
Okay. Cool. And then you asked out Jamie.
Yeah. So we went out for, she said, do you want to grab coffee? And I was like, oh, it's an ordination lady. I didn't like look her up. I just was like, sure, I'll go to coffee with some lady I met at an ordination conference. So I get there and we go to this patisserie in Lower Manhattan. And I was like, oh, the ordination lady is a hot lesbian. Okay. Who's my age? You know what I mean? Like,
wait, how'd you know? Wait, did I miss something? Is the place you all went to something else?
No, it was just like, I thought she was meeting up for coffee to talk about work stuff.
Right. But like, what made you go like, oh,
when I saw her, like I walked in and I saw her and I was like expecting, she's also Catholic. I don't know. I was expecting some like nun or something.
Oh, had you not? Wait, I thought you said you had already met.
We met, but like I was speaking at a conference.
Okay.
And so there's like hundreds of people and like.
You met, there's a card exchange, but whatever. And then, okay.
Yeah. And so she was following up with me. And when we met, I was also married to a man.
Oh.
And so she was like, all right. The way she describes it is, I was very committed to my heterosexual lifestyle. So she's like, all right, that girl's got places. She's got time. She needs to figure out her thing. So we met briefly at this conference. And then years later, after I came out, she was like, oh, hey, we met at this conference. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. But I didn't remember meeting her.
Clearly, you didn't do a good like Google stalking beforehand.
No.
You really didn't know how to do this dating thing once you got out of it.
I didn't know it was a date.
You're supposed to check the social, supposed to check the Google history.
I didn't know it was a date. I thought we were just talking shop. So I get there and I'm like, oh, okay. And so we, of course, talk for hours. And then I said, do you want to go to this queer poetry event with me at the Brooklyn Museum?
And is that your way of testing? Be like, this is a day?
Yeah. I said, on Thursday. And she said, Thursday is tomorrow. And I was like, yes. So the next day, we went on an actual date to the Brooklyn Museum.
Fantastic. What was the first thing that stood out to you about her that you were like, I'm into this?
She's hot, honestly. First of all, she's hot. She's very, very much my type. She's like butch woman, like impeccable haircut, like very well dressed. Like she's Italian, so she's beautiful. Yeah. That's honestly, this is very
Does
shallow.
she have a personality trait you enjoy? I'm just curious.
This is very shallow, but she was hot.
I mean, look, my dad has been with people just because they're hot too, so I get it. It's totally okay.
She's also brilliant. So we immediately have like everything in common. Like she's part of the women's ordination movement in the Catholic Church.
Right.
When we introduce people in Utah, I introduce her. They say, "Oh, she's the Kate Kelly of Catholicism."
Yeah.
And she says, "No, she is the Jamie Manson of Mormonism."
I like that swagger.
Which is, of course, so Catholic.
Yeah.
Because they are a church with billions with a B, and we are a church with millions. So it's a very, very, very different setup than I was raised with.
But I imagine coming from like such entrenched religious backgrounds, like there's a lot you two could compare and contrast.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
And we still do every day. Like we, take a 7-hour road trip and there's like no pausing for talking, no podcast, no music. We're just like blah, 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 the entire time. And I also make her answer, those like question lists, like 32 questions to fall in love, like da, 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 da.
I thought so much higher of you than that.
No, I'm obsessed with those questions. I like find those lists all the time, and I'm like, okay, tell me about the worst day of your life. Okay, like da da da. And she's like, I hate these, and then she just answers them all. She gets really into it, but one time we went to Fire Island. This is like classic. This is such a classic. We went to Fire Island, and we're like finishing the quiz because I'm like, it's a trip, so I'm making her do a quiz. And we're walking down, the planks in Fire Island, like the sidewalks are made of planks. And I'm like, okay, this is like question 32. And I'm like, all right, tell me about the worst day of your life and why. And then this like sea of abs, like these like huge, like 30 gay men in Speedos come down. And this guy like looks over and he's like, yes, bitch, yes. And I'm like, wow, the difference between lesbians and gay men personified.
I have not been to Fire Island to avoid such things because my body dysmorphia cannot handle watching 32 men with abs approach. No, thank you. Can't do it. Can't do it.
A sea of abs.
All right, I'll stick to Gunnison. There's a lot more bodily diversity at that nude beach than Fire Island. So I'll try to stick to there. and on the horizon, how long y'all been together? What I'm like 3-ish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would assume.
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So most of your relationship has been locked in.
Oh yeah, totally. COVID.
One of those.
We moved in because I'm gonna say COVID and not lesbians, but
COVID made a lot of people lesbians.
Of course. It's like I might as well be living with this person since I can't go anywhere else. But we bought a house together now, and yeah.
Is marriage a thing in y'all's timelines, you think?
I don't know. Yeah.
Is that something y'all would even want? I take it she hasn't been married.
She has not been married. TBD. I've already been married once. I don't know. I feel like good about where we're at. But like, why not? I love a party. She's Catholic, so she takes it very seriously. Like, she's like, what if we get divorced? What if we da-da-da? What if we da-da-da?
I got to write to the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, girl, we can just get divorced. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
She's like, you don't understand my people. The big guy with the funny hat, he's got to really approve.
They really take divorce seriously. So yeah, I don't know. Everyone thinks we're already married because like literally 3 months into our relationship, I made her take a very extensive photo shoot in the desert where we were like dressed up. And so
we come back to that Mormon creativity.
Exactly.
Sorry, we can't drink, we can't fuck, we can't do anything fun. So like, let's go in the desert and put on costumes.
Because that's who I am. And she agreed to do it. I'm shocked still to this day. So we have like a lot of professional photos. So people are like, oh yeah, your wife. I'm like, I know why it's reasonable that you think that. We're not married. In fact, an ex of hers was back dating, and she's like, you must have been dating her for so long because and it had only been it was 2.5 months, honestly. And she's like, I don't know how to explain this to you. This girl is not like most people. And we took a professional photo shoot 2 months into our relationship. I know that sounds like a lie, but it is not.
Well, it sounds like a magical, fun type of thing to be in, and good for y'all too. Kate, do you have maybe like an extra 10, 20 minutes? I had two topics I was curious about. Your passionate ERA, and the whole the childless by choice angle is something I know a lot of people can relate to, but doesn't get talked about a lot. And maybe I could ask you a little bit about that if you're into it.
Yeah.
All right. So Patreon people, we're going to do a little bonus episode. You'll hear that tomorrow. But for now, Kate, where can people go to find you? You have a great podcast yourself and a book. Same name, easier Google searches, Ordinary Equality.
Yes. You can find me on Twitter. It's Kate_Kelly_ESQ, which is annoying. I didn't know about underscores and how annoying they were when I made that handle. I apologize. And my book is Ordinary Equality. Same with the podcast.
Yeah. And the podcast is about?
The podcast is about the Equal Rights Amendment. And right now we're doing a season about abortion.
Very timely.
Yes.
As you are wearing a I will aid and abet abortion t-shirt.
Currently.
Which I jokingly, before we started, I was just like, so do you just like wear that every decision morning just in case?
And I'm like, no, I just have 7.
Well, Kate, this is very fun. Patreon people will see you tomorrow, but why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Folks, we got a great bonus episode coming out tomorrow exclusively on Patreon. We're getting all up in the Equal Rights Amendment, talking about what it is, the history of it, and how it will better and change your lives if we can finally get it ratified. All my $5 and up members will hear that tomorrow, and you can gain access to that bonus episode as well as over 200 bonus episodes when you become a member at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Folks, what'd you think about this week's episode? We'd love to know in the champagne room. Introduce yourself today and share your thoughts on the show at manwhorepod.com/discord. Or you can shout out Kate and I on Twitter or Instagram. Don't forget to tag us. She is at Kate_Kelly_ESQ. I am at the Billy Presida on Twitter. I'm at Billy is Presida on Instagram. Or you can always share your thoughts via email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. I gotta whip this bad boy together and upload you before I get picked up to go to the airport in a couple of hours. I was about to try to say I'm going to Italy, but I am all of a sudden blanking on how to do the first person of va. So I go Italia. Gosh, this is going to be interesting. I'll be sharing in my Instagram stories plenty on the trip if you want to go follow the adventures over there. Is it pathetic if I'm like hoping that Wallet Note Lady is watching? Maybe a little bit. But some optimistic, hopeful delusion is well, it's been more comforting than accepting that, like, that's over, right? I mean, like, I think it would be harmful if I didn't know I was deluding myself, but, like, I know I'm deluding myself. I'm choosing the blue pill. I spent an entire lifetime of, like, being obsessed with objective fact and truth and honesty and what's reality, and now I'm just like, no, I want to remember what a steak tastes like. Give me the blue pill. I don't want to have to, like, murder my friends in the process. I just want to feel good for a little bit. Is that all right? Is that too much to ask? Post-breakup blues, everybody. But off to Italy I go to drink a shit ton of wine with my dad. Ciao, and stay slutty. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by Beducated.com, the masterclass platform to perfect your techniques, whether you're working on penis massage or anal orgasms. Use promo code MANWHORE to get 40% off their annual membership, locked in for life, at Beducated.com. That's Beducated, BEDUCATED.com, promo code MANWHORE.